Hi, my name is Natasha Trzynski and I'm the Primary Prevention Specialist with Safe Berks. In tonight's presentation, we're going to be discussing Domestic Violence 101. What is domestic violence or intimate partner violence, also known as IPV? Domestic violence is a pattern of abusive behaviors committed against a current or former intimate partner or family member in order to gain and maintain power and control. This means that it's not just one egregious moment and one egregious event. It's not that one-time explosion. It's a pattern of these behaviors. To understand the impact of domestic violence, I wanted to provide you with some statistics. 1 in 4 women are the victim of severe physical violence by an intimate partner at some point in their lifetime. 1 in 7 men experience severe physical violence by an intimate partner at some point in their lifetime. 20 people per minute are victims of rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in the United States. The following statistics pertain to domestic violence in Pennsylvania and are from the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence. $156 billion is the estimated economic burden of intimate partner violence in Pennsylvania. This could include health costs, mental health costs, and even lost productivity from work and household chores as well. 2,486 victims were served in one day in Pennsylvania. 123 victims died from domestic violence incidents last year. 67% were killed by a current or former intimate partner. There are many types of abuse. More commonly than not, when you hear the word domestic violence, you think of physical abuse. Physical abuse is intentional but unwanted physical contact. Physical abuse can lead to injury and, in extreme cases, death. Some examples of physical abuse include punching, kicking, hitting, choking, pulling hair, or pulling and grabbing at somebody's clothing. It includes throwing objects, physically preventing somebody from leaving a room, or forcefully making you go somewhere. There is also emotional and verbal abuse as well. Usually they are used together in an effort to control a victim. Abusers may threaten their victims by yelling and screaming at them. They may make demeaning comments about a victim's physical appearance, their intellect, or worth. They may say things like, "No one else would ever want you." Verbal abuse can lead to or be used along with emotional abuse. Emotional or psychological abuse is one tactic used by abusers to control their victims. The effects of emotional abuse can also lead to a victim falsely believing that their abuser will change. It can also make them question their own self-worth, making safety planning more difficult. Abusers may use emotional abuse in a number of ways. This can include put-downs and name-calling, humiliating them in front of others. This could lead to social isolation, making them feel guilty or blaming them for the abuse. It can be behaviors and comments that are used to lower their self-esteem, even playing mind games. Another type of abuse is sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is any unwanted sexual contact made without consent. It's being forced to do something sexually. There's also stalking or cyberstalking. With today's technology and social media, it is much easier for someone to stalk and cyberstalk and even plan out the grooming of who they're going to abuse. There's also financial abuse. In approximately 99% of abusive relationships, financial abuse occurs. Yet, it's the least known form of abuse. This form of abuse is one of the most powerful tactics of power and control. It is so powerful that many victims of abuse describe it as the main reason why they stayed in their abusive relationship or why they went back to one. Financial abuse creates dependence on the abuser. It serves as an entrapment of a victim into the relationship. Some forms of financial abuse include giving an allowance, not letting the victim have his or her own money, hiding family assets, running up debt, interfering with employment, or even ruining somebody's credit. When we think of healthy relationships, we should be thinking about a relationship that has equality. Here, you're looking at a nonviolence wheel, which includes making financial decisions together, respecting one another, supporting each other's goals, both partners showing parental responsibility. These are the things that exist in healthy relationships, with equality between partners. No one has more power or control in this relationship. In this wheel, you will notice the opposite. This is what we call the violence wheel. It revolves around power and control, where one partner has the power and control over another. They will use tactics like isolation from friends and family, so there is less of a support system. They will put their partner down to make them feel less of themselves and like they can't leave because no one else will ever love them. They use threats and always control the finances. Looking at this wheel, it is clearly an abusive, unhealthy relationship filled with violence. True or false? Domestic violence happens because the abuser has an anger issue. If you said false, you are correct. Domestic violence happens because the abuser wants to gain and maintain power and control. It has nothing to do with an anger issue. Domestic violence is also not caused by drugs, alcohol, mental health, or stress. Each of those examples listed above is an excuse that abusers use to justify their actions. An abuser will never admit that the abuse is their own fault, so they blame it on things like drugs, alcohol, mental health, and stress. But domestic violence is all about the abuser gaining and maintaining power and control over their partner. Abusers use violence to reinforce their power and control over their partners. The abuse is not that egregious event like I talked about earlier. It's a pattern. So on the contrary, they deliberately choose whom they abuse. This could be someone that they've even groomed for a while, somebody that they found vulnerable or they knew they could have that power and control over. They decide when it happens, when the abuse is going to occur, when the first incident is going to take place, how the escalation is going to go. They decide where the abuse happens. They decide if it's in public. They decide if it's in private. They decide if it's after dinner. They decide where. They also decide the severity or frequency of the abuse. They decide the method or the strategy that they're going to use. They decide who witnesses the abuse. Will they allow some friends to see it? Will they allow some family to see it? Will they allow public to see it? Usually, more times than not, they don't allow family and friends to see it. They also decide if it continues. Only they can decide when it ends. There are no boundaries when it comes to domestic violence. It affects persons of all cultures, races, gender identities, sexual orientations, occupations, income levels. Anyone can experience intimate partner violence. Women of African descent and other women of color endure even higher rates of violence than white women and face additional barriers when seeking help. The abusers are just as diverse as their victims. Individuals living with disabilities experience higher rates of violence. A third of men counseled for domestic violence are professionals. Many of you might be sitting there thinking, why don't they just leave? Or you've been put in this situation by a friend or family member and you ask yourself, you don't say it to them, but you just think, why don't they just leave? In fact, many abusive partners seem perfect in the early stages of a relationship. The possessive and controlling behaviors, they don't always appear overnight, but rather they emerge and intensify as the relationship grows. There are many reasons why somebody stays in an abusive relationship, and you can see many of the barriers and the reasons why people stay in front of you, such as law enforcement or the systems. They're not helpful or they've had poor past experiences. Maybe they're a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and they face additional obstacles and discrimination, such as being outed if they leave. Children. That's one of the number one reasons why people stay, over the safety of their children, or custody issues, or they just don't want to leave their child. Worry about childcare or who's going to watch their child. The passports at the bottom. There might be immigration issues and concerns. There could also be barriers around money, and maybe resources are scarce for them. Church and other faith-based institutions can be another barrier that's present for some people because they're not supportive or they tell the person to stay with their abuser. Pets. Pets is another big reason why people stay, because the abuser will threaten to hurt or harm or kill somebody's loving pet, so they stay with that person. Maybe it's because they have a disability and they rely solely on this person and need to because they need the support. Maybe it's about having a place to sleep at night and having a roof over their head. Not having a place to go can be very scary. And you also see the danger sign and the gun. If they have a gun, that's scarier because what if they decide to use that weapon? And the danger is because leaving is the most dangerous time for the victim. Abusers feel like they're losing that power and control that they have, so they do become more dangerous and lethal. Another big barrier that you see in the center is love, because these people love their abusers. There was a love there. There was that honeymoon phase. At one point, they were loved back. And part of them still believes that that abuser is going to change. They make them believe that. But change or leaving, it's a process. It's not an event. It takes time. It takes planning. Safe Berks can help day or night in safety planning and crisis planning to assist in the process. The biggest reason someone cannot just leave is because it is the most dangerous time for someone who is being abused. During threats of leaving or actual leaving, the chances of abuse, serious injury, and death increases. Below on this slide, you see the statistics for separation violence. It's a known fact that victims seek medical attention more for their injuries significantly after separation. 75% of ER visits come after separation. And 2/3 of domestic violence homicides occur after separation or divorce. So why does this matter? Because anyone can be a victim. The chances are you know someone who has experienced domestic violence. Domestic violence thrives in silence, but yet these statistics are loud and clear. 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men, 2 in 5 lesbians, 1 in 4 gay men, 2 in 5 Black women, 1 in 3 Latinas, and 1 in 5 Asian Pacific Islander women are affected by domestic violence and physical violence. Yet, 2 out of 3 Americans have never talked about domestic violence with their friends. We have to end the silence. We have to speak up. Stop letting domestic violence thrive in the silence. Earlier, we talked about some statistics, and I just wanted to follow up and give you a few more. There have been 20,000 phone calls placed to domestic violence hotlines daily. We said earlier, 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner. Intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crimes. Women between the ages of 18 and 24 are the most commonly abused. And 19% of domestic violence involves a weapon. At this time, we're going to move on and talk more about the services that Safe Berks offers to victims and survivors of domestic violence. Safe Berks offers many crisis services. We have a 24-hour toll-free hotline. You can call 844-789-SAFE. We are available in Spanish and English and any other language that may be needed. We have a text hotline. You can text Safe Berks to 20121. We have a safe house for those that need immediate shelter and have nowhere else to go. We have rapid response and medical advocacy. It is available at the local hospitals 24/7, 365. They're available for safety planning, crisis counseling, and even referrals. The residential services. We spoke a little bit about the safe house in the first slide, but we also offer bridge housing where our clients can stay up to 6 months with a minimal fee. It's really about empowering our clients and letting them know that they can do this on their own. We talked about earlier that 99% of abuse includes financial abuse. So they don't know how to pay rent. They don't know how to open a bank account. So we help them and we empower them that they can do this on their own. So that's why there's a minimal fee for the bridge housing. They help with assistance with finding permanent housing, and all Safe Berks services and supports are available during the time. We also have our counseling department. It is completely trauma-informed and empowerment-based. The client is driving the bus, and we are the passengers. It is for all victims and survivors of domestic violence. It can be somebody that's affected by domestic violence currently or in the past. And when I say past, I'm not talking about like the past 2 weeks. I'm talking about the past. It could be 2 years ago, 7 years ago. But the effects are lingering. But we also know that it doesn't just affect the one person in the family. It can affect the entire family. So we offer the counseling services for all family members and significant others as well. We also have somebody who specializes in serves those that were the survivors of childhood domestic violence and sexual abuse, as well as we also now have an economic sustainability advocate. Since we keep talking about financial abuse, this is so important. It's one of our newer programs. Since many victims of domestic violence suffered from financial abuse, this includes preventing access to money or financial resources. They were controlled by how much money is spent, not allowing the partner to work or earn money, or even stealing the person's money if they do work. So this program actually empowers our clients. It helps with interviews. It helps with landing a job. It helps with budgeting. It helps to open up a bank account and learn how to do credit repair. In our legal department, we have 2 full-time staff attorneys who help with protection from abuse orders, protection from intimidation orders, as well as sexual violence protection orders. We also help with accompaniment and representation at the final hearings. We also have legal advocates to accompany to criminal hearings, trials, and interviews to help support our clients. We have a campus advocate and Title IX outreach coordinator. We have legal referrals. So although we only work with PFAs, PFIs, and SVPOs, we will refer for custody issues, immigration issues, child support, and many others. We also have a Children's Alliance Center coordinator as well. Our Medical Advocacy Partnership Program is our on-site advocates for all of the local hospitals. They have an on-call schedule 24/7, 365. We have one that oversees all of Tower Health. We have one that sees all of Penn State St. Joe's. And we also have one that sees all the facilities for BCHC, or the Berks Community Health Center. The goals of our MAP program are really to develop an effective screening tool for health professionals, to establish standard policies and protocols for responding to victims, to enhance healthcare provider knowledge about the risks, and increase the access to Safe Berks services to those who are victims and survivors when they come into the hospital. We also have the Education and Community Outreach Department, which is the department that I am from. We have community educators that go in and focus on primary prevention at the school and in youth programs and use the primary prevention curriculums. We have Camp Safe Berks, which is a week-long summer day camp every summer that we offer free of charge to all the youth aged 12 to 17 in Berks County. We do community awareness at events, and we do outreach. We do professional training for our systems partners. We are in charge of the domestic violence and sexual assault advocate training through Safe Berks, and we also are in charge of the internship coordination. Again, all Safe Berks services are free and confidential. Let's stop the violence, end the silence, and build a safer Berks together. Thanks for tuning in to this presentation on Domestic Violence 101. Feel free to leave any questions or comments on the video below. Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone.